Hi, I'm Outdoors Runner David Figura, and today I'm with Jim Rolf, who's the trail coordinator for the New York State Snowmobile Association. And winter's going to be here before you know it. So today we're going to be talking about what snowmobilers need to know to get ready for the snowmobile season. Jim, why don't you start off with the importance of getting your sled registered and being insured?
Well, obviously, number one is the law. Be registered and insured in New York State to be able to ride off your own property. But also in the registrations, which I'll touch on the money. We'll say it's $100 per sled is the way that the law reads.
Right.
$95 of that $100 goes into a trail fund, which is then used to help reimburse the local clubs, volunteers, organizations that maintain the trails. It goes to the organizations, not to the volunteers. But there's a benefit if you join a club prior to registering your snowmobile. The club cost is $30 to join annually. You get a voucher to be used at DMV for $55 off from each of your sleds after that. So the first sled would basically cost $75. And the second sled would cost total for two sleds is $120 compared to $200 if you didn't join a club first.
Oh, how do you join? You do it online? You have to go down to DMV or either way?
No, you have to do it online or directly with a club. We obviously promote directly with a club, but not everybody, about 60% of the people like to join online now for ease.
It's joining a club now. Yeah. Okay.
Joining a club. Yeah. And then you can do registering online too, as well.
Okay.
Out-of-staters, the problem with out-of-staters or even out-of-country people, they can't register online the first time that they did it. So if they've been here, they can renew. So the difference between registering a first time and renewing a snowmobile online. But you renew online now, it's just so much easier. The problem is that the DMV website's being over inundated with all types of registrations, especially up till November 3rd, because New York State executive order gave everybody the ability since March 16th to not have any registrations or inspections that were due during that time, that they extended it and extended it again and then extended it again. And then now it runs out on November 3rd. So everybody's trying to re-register or renew the registrations for all types of vehicles, and it's holding up the system. I'm getting reports of people can't do it for days. It just errors.
Yeah. What's the penalty for not having a sled registered or insured?
If you're caught off your property with a sled unregistered, it would be, it's a minimum of $200 plus state surcharge, which I think is over $100 now. Maximum is $500. And I know a lot of judges are going the maximum because you're being, most people do it purposely. They know they're supposed to be registered. They're hoping they just don't get caught. Uninsured is the same fine that would be for a car. It's $250. I believe it's $250 fine plus state surcharge as well. So the $500 unregistered fine it's a big hit, plus surcharge.
I'd say so. Now, as far as getting your sled ready, your snowmobile ready for the season, what are some basics? I mean, the bottom line is you shouldn't wait to the last minute to do this because
no, most people do though, unfortunately, with everything. Well, if you got it ready, if you did what you should have done when you put it away, which was clean it up, grease to get some of the water out of the bearings and out of the moving parts of your suspension, then it makes it easier this time of year to follow through on that. But if you didn't do it in the spring, you got to make sure you do it now. You're going to see a lot of water come out of greasable areas. You got to get all that out. Fresh grease in annually. Some people that ride a lot of miles during the season do it again. But you should in the springtime. I like to tell people you should paint up any of the rust spots of your steel suspension so it doesn't rust further and break welds and things like that. It's a good time to look at things. Maybe a bolt loose, tighten up your bolts in your suspension if they came loose. Replace anything that's missing. See if anything's broke. Look at your welds. Take your clutch off, the belt off the clutches, because it'll get a memory. Rubber belts will get a memory, so you shouldn't leave it on all year. And in the springtime, when you put it away, if you put it and stored it off the ground, it helps obviously with moisture inside, preferably if you can, but if it's outside, cover it, get it off the ground so that there's no moisture. Just and then check right this time of year. First thing you check before you start it, those little mice like to climb up into the exhaust and make nests in the exhaust. And when you start it, there's not enough back pressure to run. So all of a sudden your sled will run terrible. Now, first thing you do when it cools down, reach your hand up in the bottom of your exhaust. And then sometimes there's a mouse nest or a squirrel's nest or a red squirrel, chipmunk, whatever. And then open up the cowling and look and see how many nests are up underneath. So not good to leave them outside, but people that do got to, be diligent to make sure nothing's up in there. So this time of year, you check your ski runners to make sure they're not worn off. That's a safety item. The slide rail sliders, make the graphite sliders, make sure they're not worn down. So it's going to wear the aluminum slides down. So clean up your windshield and mirrors so you can see well, things like that. And then obviously put your sticker on, your annual sticker, after registration before you go out.
Now you mentioned, joining a snowmobile club, which gets you a discount on your registration and all. Why is it really important to join a snowmobile club apart from that?
Great question. Well, the snowmobile clubs, they're volunteers, and the snowmobile clubs are the ones who maintain the snowmobile trails all across the state. There's 10,500 miles of what is considered New York State Parks funded trails. And there's probably another 2,500 of club maintained trails. And so those volunteers that have to go out, that have volunteered for their organization to go out and do it, provide a service mostly to your community. The way I look at it is snowmobile clubs are community service organizations. We build trails to businesses, to gas stations, to community connectors, we is what these trails are considered. So in order to bring people to your area, you got to obviously have those volunteers out there to trim the trails, repair the bridges, install culverts where needed, deal with the DEC, Parks and Rec, DOT, on rules and regulations, and trim, like I said, cut new trails if need be, and signing the trails for safety late in the fall before the snow comes. Without all that, there is no trail system. So if there's no volunteers, because there's no clubs and there's no club participation, there's no trails. So people need to really understand that. And there's a lot of clubs that are in situations where the volunteer base is getting older. Not to be racist or, based on age, it's a fact. The people that have done this the longest are getting older, they're getting tired, they're getting slower, and they're in need of new bodies to help out. They're willing to train and bring them in. So that's the main reason to join a club. Financially, it helps them directly, obviously, as well. You're putting your money to the club that you so choose to join. And we emphasize joining wherever you ride the most. Your home club is nice, but if you don't ride there and you ride somewhere else, join a club where you ride the most. And you could pick different clubs, and you could pick multiple clubs a year. There are some people that join 10 or more clubs a year because when they ride, they're impressed with where they drop off from, or maybe where their camp is, or things like that. And when they ride clubs, and they're like, man, these other 9 clubs deserve my support. So, so there's secondary memberships, and they're only $24 a year.
Okay. Now, when the first snow comes, everyone gets revved up to head out. Could you emphasize the importance of staying on marked trails?
Oh, it's frustrating, Dave. I think you and I probably talked about this before. Early in the season, the problem is hunting season. We have agreements with the DEC on state lands, parks lands where they allow snowmobile trails, and more importantly, local private landowners who hunt their own properties. We don't want anybody out prior to hunting season riding on private lands where those landowners hunt. And I know you're an avid sportsman. It's about respect for the landowners who generously allow us to use their lands. Staying on the marked trail, that's another issue. Some people think it's their right, or their own, their right, we'll say, to ride anywhere they want. Now, the clubs go to landowners and we ask for permission to ride in a certain area. And a lot of times or most of the time, we're looking for the safest area. It may end up being a farmer's road, we'll say, but sometimes it's right straight through a field, and the clubs try to put the trail where it's the safest. Maybe it's got a lot of rolling hills, so we try to stay in the valleys. We mark the hills for safety. You go off the marked trail at 6 foot outside the marked trail, according to the New York State Park Snowmobile Handbook, is a no-no, because there could be anything out there. The clubs cannot have give any indication of what's outside that. We have no idea what's 100 feet away from the trail. There could be water spigots for irrigation, big giant rocks, ditches. So we find the safest area to go is club volunteers, and that's where we sign our trails. So staying on the marked trail. The other thing is, if a landowner says that they could own 500 acres and they only want you on a 15-foot wide section through their field, because and they're willing to give that up sometimes in a little bit of crop damage, that's where you go. You go outside that, or maybe it's on a farmer's road, like I said. You go off that farm road, now you're on someone's crop. What if it's winter wheat or things like that they do not want us on? Very sensitive issue.
You mess it up for everybody else, because
yeah,
the landowner gets upset and says, "That's it, no more snowmobiling."
And they know it's a far minority that do it. It's like I said, some people it's like a game to them. We need people to understand it's not a game. You're ruining it for everybody, like as you said, but you're also ruining it for the volunteers. They got to go out and fix the problems. They got to listen to the landowners who are upset, rightfully so. And they, when they do that, it makes a hardship on the club. Now we got if they close it down, we have to go out and find a new trail.
Right.
Sometimes that's impossible. So you lose a whole trail system because of a few bad apples deciding that they want to go wherever they want to go.
Now you mentioned about, staying on the trails and being safe. In New York State, I know that I think it's 18 and under, you're required to have a snowmobile safety course. I've taken one and passed one, but you're not if you're an adult rider. Mm-hmm. Say as an adult, I want to take a snowmobile safety course. How would I go about doing that?
Well, you can look up on the New York State Parks and Rec website under recreation and then snowmobile, and then you look up safety classes, and then there's a whole list there. You can break it down by county or the whole state when the drop-down box shows where they're available. So at this point in time, you would have to take the class along with the youth that are in the class. We encourage that, obviously, highly encourage that.
But is there any online offerings? I mean, they're doing it for everything else.
There's no currently no New York State online snowmobile safety classes. Now, there are online safety classes in other states that are free at this point. They give some basic information, good information. Okay. Things that people could know, that if you do a Google search, just punch in snowmobile safety online class free kind of a thing and see what comes up. I think there's some in Canada even. I mean, they teach the same things. It's the rules of the road is the rules of the snowmobile trail. Stay right, respect other riders that are coming at you and riding with in the same way as you. There's defense. You want to defensive driving. You got to know, stopping at stop signs, yielding at yield signs. Stay right. I'll say it again because that is something that just some people can't comprehend. I don't know how they do it on the road, and they can't do it on a snowmobile trail, but they seem to want to ride down the middle of the trail all the time, even on a 20-foot wide flat trail. They seem to want to ride in the middle. Doesn't make sense.
Right. And the speed limit's what, 55? Maximum,
yeah, unless otherwise posted lower. Yes, that's a good
and
point.
The same. There's also, restrictions for driving while intoxicated and all that.
Yes, exactly like a car. Yep.
Yeah. One of the things that I've talked to several snowmobilers, and they always say I should mention in anything like this, is the wearing of a tech vest. Could you talk about what that is?
Tech vest is a name of a company. It's but there are other vests out there similar to it. Motocross. A lot of people that involved with motocross or watch motocross see people ride them. Tech vests are Kevlar So the actual tech vest is that got like a Kevlar, which is similar material as bulletproof vests, only it's not obviously as bulletproof, but they protect your vital organs. They come up, protect your collarbones. Most of them zip up, and they protect your rib cage, and they protect your back. Some even have kidney protectors down around your kidneys that flaps in the back. And then you obviously most of them are made to go underneath your coat and over your clothes. You put your coat over top and it covers it all up.
Do you wear one?
Yes, I do wear one. I didn't for the longest time. It's a long story, but I don't have time to do it here today. But a local young man died who I've known since he was a little kid. Worked with his grandfather and his father and snowmobile with him actually when he was young, just a few years ago in a county north of here. Innocently slipped off his running board, hit his collarbone on the handlebar riser, and broke his clavicle. It went into his aorta, and he bled to death right there with his 4-year-old son on the trail and his father. So at that point, it kind of hit home. Why wouldn't I wear one? I've got 3 kids of my own and a wife and family, and now I have 3 grandkids. The point of going out and snowmobiling is to enjoy the outdoors and get home. I want to get home to my family. So, I matured. Let's put it that way. It's not a 100% lifesaver. Obviously, you can still, hit a tree. Even at 40 miles an hour, that fixed tree is not going to move. It's not going to save your life in that sense. So it's a benefit though. My wife now wears one as well the last few years. Once you get used to it, it's part of the outfit. They're not really heavy.
Yeah. One last thing, Jim. You look outside, you see the snow, and once again, it's like different parts of the state have different levels of snow. So you're looking at a weekend, maybe early on in the season, and you're wondering, geez, I wonder if my favorite snowmobile spot has enough snow or the trails are open. How do you find that out?
Well, 2 years ago, the New York State Snowmobile Association invested into with a vendor, a snowmobiler actually out of Maine, who had a company that did this, and we developed the New York State NYSA, NYSSA interactive snowmobile web map. Interactive web map. It can be found at New York State Snowmobile-webmap.com, as a matter of fact, spelled out New York Snowmobile-webmap.com, all one word. And what that map has all the trails on it across the state, and we can color code them as open or closed. The clubs can. Each individual club. Now, I forgot to mention this. There's over 220 club organizations, which are considered trail maintenance entities by New York State Parks, who maintain these trails, TMEs. Those TMEs have volunteer editors, club editors for this web map that go in and update their trails as open or closed. Right now, they all show closed, obviously, because they're all closed until after hunting season ends. It also shows the boundary of the New York State's northern zone and southern zone hunting areas. So, because that was always a big question this time of year. How do I know what's people, especially if people come from out of state, or southern tier looking to ride in northern tier early. They want to know where the line is to get to. But anyways, that shows that. So you can go on and look at that. You can find out which clubs maintain which trails. We even have direct links from the data there to the club's membership websites. So if you like what you see when you're on that particular trail all the time, you can do it. And also on top of that, with the web map, we also nice to have a smartphone mobile app. New York State or NYSSA again, mobile app. It's an app. It's $4.99 a year. It's gonna actually be shut off, I believe, tomorrow. Last year's app, and the new app will go on sale here we're hoping within the next 10 days. I'm not sure when you air this, but we'll say early in November. It's going to have some new features, obviously some changed trails on it. So it's going to be different from last year's. But that's a pretty sizable investment for the state association. And we partnered with a vendor in Maine, obviously, who does this. Like I said, he's a snowmobiler, so this is like interesting to him to do this. But it's a private venture with the state association.
Well, I just want to say, Jim, I hope you have a safe and fun snowmobile season, and here's hoping for snow.